What's going on, my homies? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with Season 9 of the Global Battle Association. Your KC Jirachiefs have returned for this season of the GBA, and in case you weren't already aware, I would assume most of you are at this point, but just in case, we're going to be playing the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee video game for this season of the GBA, which proves to be a very interesting concept. As I'm sure most of you are aware, Let's Go is a game that is kind of competitively dumbed down, for the lack of a better term. They removed a lot of key features that I normally would like to use in my team building, like EVs, for example, items, abilities. Those are all really important factors in throughout the history of draft format until now, and this season's going to be basically a season without that, so it's going to feel really similar to as if we were trying to play a season of draft format using the original red, blue, and yellow versions. So it's really similar to that, the only exception being there is the physical special split, and there's also still going to be natures that we can try to, I guess, manipulate throughout the season for our team build. So there's a few creative things we can do from a team building perspective, but definitely this is going to be a very unique season. Probably not going to see many more seasons of draft format that are similar to this one, especially once Let's Go passes into Generation 8. But with that said, we are facing Leader Geo in Week 1 of the GBA, the coach of the San Francisco GiEnteis, and he is rocking a pretty cool squad. He has the Mega Charizard X, the Nidoqueen, Exeggutor, Tauros, Hitmonlee, Vaporeon, Alolan Golem, and the Ditto, which, yes, it does not have imposters. So, yeah, his team is pretty interesting. He has a lot of threats on his team. If I recall correctly, looking at the power rankings, he was rated a little bit lower in the power rankings, and I didn't catch the rationale as to why, but his team actually is pretty threatening. Like, he has some pretty strong Pokemon, and even picking up Tauros in round 4, that's a round 4 steal, in my opinion, based upon some of the other mons that went in round 4 versus what went in something like round 3. So that round 4 Tauros is huge. It's actually probably his win con against my team, and I'll talk more about that when I get into my team build here. Just its speed stat makes it a big threat to really any team Geo is going to face throughout the season. So Tauros is a pretty big threat. The Mega Charizard X is also a pretty big threat to my team, not because it gets any form of setup. I don't think it gets any setup at all actually in this game, which that's kind of nice from my perspective if you're trying to build against it, but it's still going to hit hard. It has access to Outrage and Flare Blitz, both of which are very powerful stab options, and I only have one Dragon Resist on my team, so if he doesn't bring Outrage on his Mega Charizard X this week, I will be very surprised for sure. So that makes it a pretty big threat. I do have the Wigglytuff that I could bring. You know, let me go over my team. I guess some of you guys might not be too familiar with my team at this point. I guess you can probably see it in front of you right now. But this season I am bringing the Aerodactyl, Mega Kangaskhan, Alolan Raichu, Blastoise, Rapidash, Wigglytuff, Hitmonchan, and Marowak. So if you didn't already know that, that probably means you didn't watch my draft analysis, so make sure to go check that out as well. That'll be linked down in the first line of the description below as per the usual. Now with that said, back onto Geo's team. The Tauros, the Mega Charizard X, two pretty big threats against my team. I would also argue that the Hitmonlee is actually kind of annoying as well. Not because it really outspeeds much of my team, but my Mega Kangaskhan isn't able to knock it out in one hit with any of my moves, so he could easily run a just a Hitmonlee to maybe counter lead, or just to counter my Kangaskhan, and I don't actually switch into Hitmonlee really at all, so he should be able to 2-hit KO pretty much anything on my team if he's able to switch it in against my Kangaskhan. So those are three Pokemon that are pretty strong against me. Exeggutor is a little bit annoying to switch into, since I obviously don't have a grass type on my team. That would be preferable to switch into something like Exeggutor, but I do have some other just generally bulky Pokemon that could switch into it if I need to. Rapidash also could potentially switch in as well, and Exeggutor does have the really unique typing it needs to actually resist Alolan Raichu's dual stabs, which most teams are not going to have access to a Pokemon that can do that. movesets, so I do kind of have to build and play around that here this week as well. So in terms of what I expect him to bring in this matchup, I'm expecting him to bring the Mega Charizard X, Nidoqueen, Exeggutor, Tauros, and Vaporeon, definitely. To me, it's kind of between Alolan Golem and Hitmonlee for that last spot, but I really think it's probably going to be the Hitmonlee because Alolan Golem just doesn't threaten me at all, and the Hitmonlee actually has at least potential to threaten my Mega Kangaskhan if he manages to maybe catch me in a lead scenario, or just wants to maybe just claim a kill or something. Basically, I don't think Alolan Golem is going to be able to get a kill. Hitmonlee, in theory, could. Not that I really think he's going to bring Hitmonlee to a game, but he might. So that's kind of what I expect him to bring. I'm not going to go into, I guess, too much detail on what his mons can do. As I've said, this is a pretty simplified meta game in terms of what Pokemon can do. The move pools are limited. There's a lot of things you can't really do in your team builders. What I'm actually going to focus on for my team builders throughout the season is, first and foremost, as per the usual, my game plan for the matchup. That's what I try to focus on in my team builders, and I hope you guys were able to kind of understand that and take that away for my team builders in last season of the GBA. But I want to make sure I bring that back to you guys this season, despite the fact that many people think Let's Go, including myself, many people think that Pokemon Let's Go isn't the most competitive game in the world, specifically not the most competitive version of Pokemon we've seen in the past decade. Quite frankly, probably the least competitive. But even so, we can still find ways to make this a competitive game. That's what we're doing in the GBA this season, and I know many of you are skeptical about that, but I hope you will tough it out, at least give it a chance here, and maybe you'll enjoy the ride throughout the season. But with that said, let's talk a little bit about the team that I am bringing for this week against Geo. So as I already mentioned, he has the Mega Charizard X and the Tauros and the Hitmonlee, 3 mons that I think could be pretty good at claiming kills against my team. I think those are the Pokemon that he could bring that have the highest potential to claim kills against me, especially the Tauros and the Mega Charizard X. Hitmonlee would be more like a one kill type of Pokemon, but the Mega Charizard X and the Tauros both have the potential to get multiple kills against me if I don't prepare accordingly. So what I'm actually going to do with my team build for this week is I'm actually going to bring a dual screens approach for this matchup. Now he mostly has, I guess, a variety of physical and special attackers, but like I mentioned, the best Pokemon he has that getting kills against my team are all physical attackers. Mega Charizard X going to be entirely physical, pretty much guaranteed. Hitmonlee always going to be physical. Tauros is probably going to be 4 attacks physical as well. So if I can get Reflect up early in the game and often in the game, my team's going to probably be in a really good spot to be able to just outlast him and do a lot of damage back to him. Because if you look at my really good offensive Pokemon against him, I have the Mega Kangaskhan and the Aerodactyl, both of which are really good against him. Aerodactyl can run an Adamant Nature and still outspeed his entire team, including Tauros. That is awesome, okay? That gives Aerodactyl a significant power boost, and just the combination of Rock Slide and Earthquake is able to do a lot of damage against his team. And I could even throw on something like Aerial Ace as well to allow me to hit the Hitmonlee and the Exeggutor for super effective damage as well, if that's what I choose to do. So Aerodactyl is really good against him as a late game option. The Mega Kangaskhan is also really good because he only has 2 Pokemon that can speed tie or outspeed at base 100 speed Pokemon like Mega Kangaskhan. So I can actually just run an Adamant Mega Kangaskhan if I want to as well, because he has the speed tier drop from the Mega Charizard X, I believe, all the way down to the Hitmonlee, and Hitmonlee with a Jolly Nature is actually not fast enough to outspeed an Adamant Mega Kangaskhan either, so I can just run an Adamant Kang and just do all kinds of damage against his team if that's what I choose to do. And he really lacks many ways to knock out Mega Kangaskhan in one hit. I believe his only way to knock out Mega Kang in one hit is with the Hitmonlee, which is outsped by Mega Kangaskhan. So combination of Adamant Aerodactyl and Adamant Mega Kangaskhan is probably what's going to be getting me the most kills here in this game, especially supported by the dual screens option that I'm going to use the rest of my team to provide, basically. So that's the general game plan as far as the team versus team. I'll talk more about the best 2 out of 3 strategy here at the end, but we'll kick this off with the Aerodactyl. Just very simply, it's running Roost, Earthquake, Reflect, and Rock Slide. Reflect allows this to actually have a chance of 1v1ing the Tauros. The only way that I don't 1v1 Tauros is if I get crit or if he is running Iron Tail and manages to get a defense drop against my Aerodactyl. If we are both at full health whenever the 1v1 scenario begins, my Aerodactyl should be able to beat it 1v1 unless that happens. So with that said, that's really his only mon that can deal with the Aerodactyl besides the Vaporeon. I guess Exeggutor, if it's healthy, can deal with this set as well, but that's what I have the rest of my team for. I really think that the Vaporeon's not going to be able to stay healthy against my team, especially when it also has to deal with something like my Mega Kangaskhan, which I'm trying to bring up. There we go. Mega Kangaskhan, fantastic against him in this matchup. I'm just bringing 4 coverage moves: Earthquake, Facade, Brick Break, and Ice Punch. Brick Break gives me a chance to 2-hit KO the Tauros and also allows me to have a counter strategy just in case he opts for the same strategy I have here in bringing dual screens. I believe he has at least a couple Pokemon that can run dual screens. Exeggutor probably gets both screens, and off the top of my head, I'm not sure which of his other Pokemon get it, but more importantly, it gives me a chance to 2-hit KO the Tauros just in case I need to knock that thing out in a last mon scenario. I think most likely, like I mentioned before, Geo's probably going to use Tauros as his win condition, and if that's the case, he should save it until the very last Pokemon, which means I might not get any chip damage off on it, so I want to have some kind of way to potentially 2-hit KO this thing, and Brick Break is the way to do that. Facade is just good neutral coverage against his team. His only resist to Facade is the Alolan Golem, which is blown back by Earthquake, so I really don't care on that. And it also gives me a nice way to punish him if he decides to take a more defensive route against my team and try to check me with something like the Vaporeon. If he Toxics me or Scald Burns me, Facade just claims a kill, maybe even 2, before I go down due to my speed tier. So yeah, Mega King, phenomenal against him. Just those are my 2 best offensive Pokemon against him, and the rest of my team is just going to try to support that. So next up is going to be my first dual screener, or I guess my only dual screener technically. I have screens on a couple other mons. You already saw it on the Aerodactyl. So on my Alolan Raichu, I am bringing Psychic, Light Screen, Toxic, and Reflect. Toxic is specifically for the Exeggutor. Psychic is spammable against his team. His only resist to Psychic on his entire team is the Exeggutor, which I do plan to Toxic and set up a Light Screen, potentially even a Reflect against him. Once I have both of my screens up, it's a very difficult situation for Geo here in this matchup, just because of how strong my Aerodactyl and my Mega Kangaskhan are against him. So Alolan Raichu, very simple overall. Timid nature allows me to speed tie Tauros and outspeed the rest of his team guaranteed, and that's Raichu. So then I have my Blastoise. I am just running 3 attacks: Toxic, Dragon Pulse to allow me to do a little bit of extra damage to the Mega Charizard X, just to make it feel a little uncomfortable if it wants to try to roost stall against me potentially. Toxic again will help in that situation, being able to whittle the Mega Charizard X down little by little through Toxic and Dragon Pulse damage. Toxic is also nice for the Vaporeon to weaken it down for my Aerodactyl, Mega Kangaskhan that are trying to win the game for me. Then I have Ice Beam for the Exeggutor specifically. With my Bold Nature, I should still be able to outspeed Exeggutor. I think even if it's timid, I outspeed him, so no problem there. And then Scald is just a good spammable move against a team that has a lot of physical threats that I would love to burn. So that is the Blastoise. Then I have Rapidash. This is going to be another one of my screens users. As you can see, it's running Reflect. Toxic again is nice for his other switches to Rapidash, so like Vaporeon and the Mega Charizard X. Both of them don't appreciate Toxic, and I love getting Toxics on them, again, for my offense to win in the end. And then Flare Blitz is just really good and spammable against him, except against the Vaporeon, Alolan Golem, and the Mega Charizard X. I'm not doing anything to Vaporeon anyways, besides Toxicing it, but the Mega Charizard X and the Alolan Golem obviously will not appreciate a Drill Run. Then finally, or I guess this is running Jolly Nature to outspeed Mega Charizard X, pretty simple stuff. Then finally, I have the Wigglytuff, which is probably not actually going to come in this game unless he is a mono Outrage Mega Charizard X. I really only have it here as a way to deal with that if I need to. Otherwise, it's just going to sit on the bench, probably here, just as a potential deterrent, maybe just make him think twice about clicking Outrage in this game. But I'm running Stealth Rock, Teleport, Ice Beam, and Toxic, just a general pivot against his team. I thought about running a screen on this too, but I figured I had plenty of screeners as is. I don't really need to throw it on this. And maybe I can get my Stealth Rock and slow Teleport out against something on his team and get an offensive threat and maybe claim a kill from there if that's what ends up happening and I actually need to bring Wigglytuff to this game. But realistically, I probably won't. So with that said, that is the team for this week against Geo. I think it's a pretty straightforward strategy. It seems like it should be very effective. He has minimal brick break users on his team, which would be his only way of getting rid of the dual screens. I think Alolan Golem gets it, but he's probably not bringing that. Hitmonlee gets it, but I highly doubt he brings brick break. He probably brings high jump kick, so he has a way to one-shot Mega Kangaskhan. The only other Pokemon on his team that might get brick break is Mega Charizard X, which I guess it could run it. I just don't really expect it here when he can easily run Flare Blitz and Outrage and Roost, and probably like Thunder Punch or Rock Slide to be able to hit my, probably most likely Thunder Punch actually, to be able to hit my Blastoise and my Aerodactyl. I don't think he's bringing brick break, so we probably won't have a way to get rid of the screens, which makes dual screens just a really good strategy against him for this week in my opinion. So yeah, with that said, let's talk a little bit about the strategy here. So I really think that my Alolan right, okay, so game one, let's start here. Game one, I want to win, okay? I quite honestly refuse to lose game one. Okay, I'm going to win game one, so I'm going to bring my best combination of Mons in game one to claim that win. My best combination is the Aerodactyl, Mega Kang, Alolan Raichu, and Blastoise, no matter what 6 Pokemon he brings for the matchup. Okay, so I'm going to bring those 4 Pokemon in game one. I'm going to get that game one win. And if I don't, that sucks. Okay, so I'm going to get that game one win ideally. Now the idea there then is, because I'm going to lead with Alolan Raichu, pretty much guaranteed to set up my screens, I'm expecting him in game 2 to try to counter lead that Alolan Raichu with something that would be able to potentially stop my screen. So I think he might lead with something like a Charizard, he might lead with the Tauros, he could also potentially lead with the Exeggutor, and in either case, in any of those cases, I want my Rapidash to be my lead in my second game. Okay, so Rapidash should be able to somewhat counterplay to whatever he tries to do to counter the Alolan Raichu lead. That's kind of how Let's Go works, especially in a 4v4 type of situation like this, where there's just not very many turns in the game. If you get an advantage in the early game, it's going to be kind of tough for your opponent to recover from that. And I think that especially this type of build that I'm bringing here for this week is going to put me in a good position early on in the game, especially if he doesn't bring Brick Break to get rid of my dual screens. I think that puts him really far in the back right away, as he'll have to lean on Pokemon like Vaporeon and Exeggutor to be able to beat down my team, and those just aren't the strongest Pokemon overall. Exeggutor is pretty strong, but it's tough to sweep a team with something like Exeggutor, especially when I'm going to be able to pressure it a lot with the rest of my team. So anyway, that's pretty much the idea for game 1 and game 2. And along with Rapidash, it'll kind of depend on how he plays game 1 to decide what the other Mons are that I'm going to bring, but I'm probably going to just replace Raichu with Rapidash and just kind of go from there. And if that doesn't work for game 3, I'm probably going to go back to what worked in game 1, and we'll just kind of see on that as well. But you know, it's tempting to just bring the same exact team to game 1 and game 2, but I really don't want to do that in week 1, especially just because I want to kind of see how all of my Mons are going to work. And in a way, I'm just trying to feel out how these Pokemon actually work in Let's Go as well. This is going to be my first draft league game in Let's Go, and I don't really know how these Pokemon are going to work in this game. So being able to use as many of them as possible in the first week of the season should be is probably a pretty good idea. So that's kind of the goal here with the team. I guess there's not a whole lot of strategy otherwise to really talk about for the best 2 out of 3. In a game 3 scenario, you know, we're just gonna have to see what happens, see what his sets are, and kind of adapt from there. Game 3 is all about adaptation, and hopefully we don't even get there, but we'll see. If we do get to game 3, then you better bet we're going to try to win that one as well. But you know, I think that about wraps this up. I got a little more out of the team builder than I actually expected to for a Let's Go team builder, so that's kind of cool. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. And with that said, we will see you all tomorrow for the battle against Gym Leader Geo and the San Francisco GiEnteis. If you're excited about that, make sure to leave a like down below, and also make sure to check out the battle tomorrow. And with that said, we will see you all in the next one. Peace.